Bonjour everyone, I am your humble French tarot reader slash deck goblin slash bookworm. As today we're going to be talking about my favorite recent reads, my favorite recent books, as well as of course my favorite recent tarot and oracle decks. I love showing up to share with you every month the books and the decks that have made me happy. Normally I try to do this monthly. Obviously the last couple of months have been hard for me regarding my physical health, but today I had a little bit of time and I thought, you know what, let me go on the camera. It's been a really long time, so I wanted to chat with you about favorite recent tarot and oracle decks and favorite books. I'm reading a lot, and I asked on Instagram if you guys were interested about that, and I had a lot of answers saying yes from my fellow bookworms and book lovers. So I'm gonna be talking about books first, and then we'll talk about tarot and oracle decks. I'll make sure to put timestamps in the description box so that you can navigate in case you're just here for the decks. But if you are a fellow reader, I encourage you to stick around as I've got some fantastic books. There's some fantasy, there's some sci-fi, there's some dystopia, there is some historical fiction, there's a bit of everything. I've got some 5-star reads that I really would recommend you checking out, so definitely stick around if you are a fellow bookworm like me. In the description box I'm going to make sure to leave all the names of what I'm talking about in case you're like, what is this French frog saying? It's going to be in the description box. And this is where you'll find my second channel, The Waves of Your Soul Readings, where I read the cards for you guys. I post pick a pile readings, monthly guidance, and all of that good stuff. So if you want to see how any of the decks I'm going to be talking about actually read in like real life examples, I encourage you to check that out. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers over there before the end of the year, so it would make me super happy if you guys consider joining. And I think that's all I had to say today. It's been ages since I've not filmed with my face, so it feels a little bit strange, but at the same time I had really missed it. So get a drink, get yourself comfortable. We're gonna start talking about my favorite recent books, and then we'll move on to tarot. Let's do this. A little bit of a live catch-up before I get into the books, but first off, I wanted to say thank you so much for all of the support, all of the kind words you've sent me over the last couple of months. I've been really struggling with my physical health after catching the chikungunya, which is a mosquito-borne illness. That mixed with my pre-existing chronic illness made a really tough combo. So April and May I was pretty much bedbound. I lost a lot of mobility. I'm slowly getting back into it right now, but walking is still very hard for me. I am back on a very intense physiotherapy like treatment. It's hard. So I'm I've struggled with walking before. I'm back to I've definitely taken a few steps backwards in terms of my mobility journey, and so I am back to trying to regain all of that, which is why I have been a little bit less active on the channel, and also why I'm super slow to responding to comments, and sometimes I'm not very good at checking out people's VRs to my videos and stuff like that. It's because my physical health journey is literally taking over my life, struggling tooth and nails to regain a sense of normality. I know you can't see it right now, but that's the, I guess, whole point of invisible disability. You can look at someone and not realize that they are struggling. I wanted to say a huge thank you for your support and your patience, and because I had a little bit of time today, I wanted to make sure I could come on here, show my face a little bit. It's my way of saying thank you. But instead of just me talking and seeing my hands, I thought it would be a little bit more interesting, hopefully a little bit more engaging. So yeah, starting by being grateful and saying thank you, we are gonna start with books because I was bedbound for most of April and May because of chronic illness, chronic pain, plus the mosquito illness on top of that. I actually couldn't do very much apart from reading, and I actually read a lot. I read about 50 books in the last couple of months. So I'm not going to be talking about 50 books here, or we would be here all day. I've actually chosen only my favorites. So I'm going to talk about my 5-star reads first, even though I don't really rate my books, but I would say these are my favorites. In French we would say coup de cœur, right? The ones that I absolutely adore, that I could see myself rereading next year, for example. And then I'll move on to other books that I really liked, I guess like 4.5 stars. Not my absolute favorite, but still ones I really recommend. We're not going to talk about all the other ones that were May, as again, otherwise we're going to be here all day. So I've just chosen the best of the best for today's video. The first one, I think a lot of you will have been reading as well, as it's a big release this year, and that is the latest Hunger Games. I have the French version, but in English you guys know this as Sunrise on the Reaping, I guess, by Susan Collins. This is the latest installment in the Hunger Games series, which is one of my favorite dystopia. I read this when I was obviously much younger, when I was a teenager, but I'm so excited that Susan Collins continued to add to this world, and this was absolutely a 5-star read. If you guys have read the Hunger Games before and you were considering reading this one, I absolutely recommend it. So far it's my favorite installment to the series. This made me cry, this gave me so many feelings, I was on the edge of my seat, I couldn't breathe, I went through so many emotions, and it was fantastic. And this actually follows the story of Haymitch, who in the Hunger Games trilogy is one of the mentors to Katniss and Peter, who are the 2 contestants participating in the original trilogy. Haymitch is their mentor, having won his Hunger Games back in the day, and so this installment follows his story, his Hunger Games when he was young. So this is, I guess, a prequel to the original trilogy. This definitely for me is the best book in the Hunger Games series, and it has renewed my love for the series. I always enjoy this. I love the books, I love the movies, but I think this is for me top tier, honestly. And the great thing about Hunger Games, if you guys have never read it, is that it's something I recommend for everyone. I mean, obviously you'd have to check the first age, but I think I read this when I was like pre-teen years, so I'm not sure what the age to start is, but my younger cousins are reading this right now and they're loving this. My dad is reading this, he's in his 70s and he's loving it. I could see my grandma, who's 90 and is an avid reader, enjoying this. Like, this series, the whole Hunger Game world, I think is very accessible and very like friendly to anyone who wants to get into the dystopia genre. So if you were having any doubt about should I get started, should I read this regarding on your age, I would absolutely recommend this. Let me know if you guys read this, but I cannot wait for them to turn this into a movie. I'm gonna prepare the tissues. My next 5-star reads I've read all on my e-reader, so I'll be putting pictures here as I don't have physical copies. But let's talk about Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adjebrenya. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. If I'm butchering this, I'm so sorry. This again is a dystopia standalone this time, and it was described in the blurb as Hunger Games for grown-ups. I would say yes, and more a brutal, gut-wrenching speculative fiction that imagines a dystopian future where prisoners who are murderers, who have been like imprisoned for murder or for SA, are offered a chance to survive the electric chair by entering a program that would allow them to fight gladiator style to the death. And if they manage to stay alive in this program for 3 years, then they would get freedom. They are able to like release their penitence or their prison sentence, and they are freed. And to make matters worse and even more, I would say, intense, the whole thing is televised in this like dystopian America. This whole gladiator tournament of prisoners fighting to the death is televised. We follow them as they're training, we follow them as they are camping in the outside training for it, and then we follow them when they are in the arena fighting. People can bet on who they think is gonna win, and so this is a brutal and gut-wrenching story following 2 strong Black women who are part of this program and who are choosing to participate as a way to gain their freedom. Another one of the POVs is the daughter of a convict who is inside, and the daughter is watching him from the outside. This whole book is intense. It has a huge point of view, and overall it is a whole critique about the American system, about the American carceral system. It talks about racism, it talks about the commodification of the human body, of human suffering, and how some people have no qualms in making money out of that. A really strong subject is obviously the morbid human curious nature around people willing to watch those fights to the death. This is such an important book, especially with everything going on right now in the world. I cannot recommend it enough if you like dystopia, if you like books that are engaged, that have a strong point of view, if you don't mind a little bit of, I would say, gut-wrenching moments, because as you can imagine, we follow the fights and they're quite graphic. This is an absolutely must read. I've recommended this to all of my friends. If you take one book from this particular video to read, if you are willing to get interested about these particular themes, I would absolutely encourage you to read this. It will stay with me for a very long time, and it's one I will absolutely reread at some point. The next couple of books I wanted to talk about are actually part of a trilogy, but only the first 2 books are out, and for my French readers, the first 2 books have been translated actually, so these are called The Empire of the Vampire or Empire of Vampires. I think Empire of the Vampire and Empire of the Damned by J. Christophe. As the name suggests, you might have guessed this is a vampire story, and I ate those up. I read the 2 books in like 3 days. I gobbled them up like the book goblin that I am. It was fantastic, and I cannot wait for the next book to come out, which I think is coming back later this year. So this is a vampire story. In this world, night has now fallen, meaning that when the sun rises, their sun rays actually don't come to Earth, which has created a whole lot of problem, like crops are not growing properly, trees are dying, and around all of the nature, there's those weird mushrooms that are growing everywhere because of the lack of sunshine. On top of that, vampires are now rampant because they can actually go in the daylight, as there isn't really much sun rays coming now. So this is now the era of vampires, and as you can imagine, they are making the life of the humans remaining not great. So this particular story follows the life of Gabriel de Leon, who at the start of the story is a small boy who is recruited to join a group of holy knights whose whole point and aim and goal is to fight the vampires, find the damned. The start of the story, and again, I make all of my book reviews spoiler free. Everything I'm telling you is either at the back of the book or in the first chapter, so don't worry, I'm not spoiling anything. But you start the story by following him in his prison cell. He's been captured as a grown-up by one of the vampires' powerful family, and they are asking him to tell his life story. And so through his incarceration, through his prison cell, he weaves the tale between present and past of his life, from when he's a boy recruited to being a holy knight to now finding out why he ends up in this prison cell. This is so good, you guys, so good. I can't tell you how gripping and how like page turner these books were. You have to not mind swearing, and you have to not mind dark humor and gritty kind of writing, as this can be quite gritty, very dark humor. There's a lot of swearing. Obviously I'm French, I don't mind the swearing, but if I have sensitive souls, this might not be for you. But if you like Joe Abercrombie kind of vibes, if you liked Between Two Fires, if you liked Kings of the Wild, if you liked any of those books that can be quite gritty, dark humor, this is for you. On top of that, there are illustrations in the books which are so gorgeous, and they make the reading experience like so engaging. I loved seeing the images of the characters, the different protagonists, and really my favorite thing was how the vampire lore is described, which is very unique. Other vampire books, and again, I don't want to spoil you, so I leave the surprise, but there's never a dull moment in those 2 books, and I was on the edge of my seat. So much action, so much suspense. I just couldn't stop reading, and finishing the second book, I was like, no! So no, I'm like gutted that I have to wait a few months to finish, because honestly, this was amazing. Honestly, I've read some amazing books in the last couple of months, which made life a lot more fun, as my day-to-day life was not so great, so thank God for good books. The next one I want to talk about in my best reads of the year so far is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is, I think, the first book in a series. The second one just came out, but it reads like a standalone, so you can completely just read this book and be fine. It's a fantasy book meets murder mystery, so think Sherlock Holmes in a fantasy world. And I didn't know I liked this particular genre bending kind of theme, but it was amazing, and now I can't get enough. In this particular world, we follow 2 main characters, are giving very much this dynamic of Sherlock and Watson, as the main character is Dean, who is a young man who is an apprentice to this kind of police or investigators. He's apprenticing, and he has genetic modification which gives him a photographic memory, which means that he can recall everything that he's seeing. So when he's going to crime scenes, he's able to, everything he's seeing, everything he's hearing, he's able to recall later, and that is a great obviously asset in solving cases. He is actually apprenticing to a very unique and strange and kooky character, and Anna is an eccentric genius. She is the Sherlock to his Watson. She is truly a genius, but also a bit of a recluse hermit, and he only focuses on very high cases because of her intelligence. So together they are trying to solve cases of very high profile things happening in this empire, and in this particular world the stakes are very high. We're seeing humanity trying to survive attacks from creatures coming from the sea. Every year, creatures coming from the sea are trying to come to the land and attack the people, very much like Attack on the Titans kind of. And so people have built walls on the shores trying to protect themselves, and every year people have to man the walls because they're trying to stop these huge threats coming from the sea. At the same time, as if that wasn't hard enough, on land the plants are out there to get you. There's a lot of plants and mushrooms that are very dangerous for people, that can kill. So there's a lot of stakes in this fantasy world, a lot of things from nature that make life as a human very difficult. We follow Anna and Dean as they are trying to solve the murder of a senior military engineer who was an important figure in the defense of the walls, and so they're trying to find out what happens. Again, this can act as a standalone, but there's a second book that just came out that I haven't read for yet. This is an amazing story. If you like the idea of Sherlock Holmes meets Attack on the Titans, go for it. Amazing, 5-star, chef's kiss. The last 5-star book I wanted to talk about, and then we'll move on to my less favorite, even though they're still amazing, but I wanted to start with like the best of the best, is Wayward. I read this one from my local library, so I don't have the copy here, but I will put a picture again. This is by Emilia Hart, and for my French readers, this was also translated, and in French it's called La Maison des Sortilèges. This was a historical fiction with magical realism. Absolutely gorgeous writing, first of all, very poetic, very gripping, and it puts you into this world. You feel like you're there, you feel like you are with the characters, and that's what for me made this absolutely 5-star. Was not the story is great, I'll tell you what it's about, but the writing was beautiful, very immersive, like you really feel like you're there with the characters, which I thought was wonderful. So this is a story that follows women from the same family across different centuries. First up, we follow a young woman healer in medieval England who is accused of witchcraft. Then we follow a woman from her same family, but much later, a young noble in Second World II who is living with her father and her brother, locked up in this kind of like house, very noble house, where there is nowhere to escape from as a war is raging outside, and she is trying to find her place as a young noble who cannot get freedom unless she gets married. And finally, we follow the life of current days, nowadays, the life of Kate, I think, who is living in London, and she decides to pack up her thing and leave as she is trying to escape a very abusive partner, and she's trying to like start her life from scratch. So we keep going back and forth within this story between the 3 different POVs, the 3 different women. So overall it's giving historical fiction, but with a lot of magical realism. As there is magic involved, I won't spoil you in what shape, way or form, but this is a story about feminine power. It's a story about the place of women in history, of familial love, and about generational trauma, and it was so beautiful. Again, I cried. It was just stunning writing, stunning story. I loved reading about those 3 women. Absolutely stunning book. 5 stars. Let's move on to books that I absolutely adored. Maybe they're not 5-star best of the best, but I still would absolutely recommend them as they really were fantastic reads. Starting with a novella from one of my favorite authors now, and I need to thank you guys for those of you who've recommended me to read T. Kingfisher, because she's quickly become one of my favorite authors. I'm trying to read everything she's writing, making my way through her bibliography, and I'm having the best time. So thank you so much to those of you who recommended me checking her out, because honestly, I love everything she's writing. And so in the last couple of months, I read 9 Goblins, which is one of her novellas. Of course, it had goblins in the title, and it was by one of my new favorite authors. I had to do it. There was no question. As the name suggests, this follows the story of 9 goblins during the war against humans and elves. In this story, those 9 goblins end up by accident behind enemy lines in their war against humans and elves, and they are trying to make their way back home. The great thing about this is that in this particular story, we switch everything what we think to know that we think we know about goblins, as in this they are compassionate, funny, wholesome, and this is really a story about war, obviously, but also about kindness and the power of potentially trying to understand people who are different than you, and how most of the time through compassion and through empathy we can change minds. If you're looking for like a cozy fantasy story with deep themes, as it still talks about war and you know, things like that that are very heavy themes, a wholesome story, I would say, that is a great palate cleanser, I absolutely recommend it. I loved it, and I could see myself reading this one again, absolutely. Another book I really loved that isn't quite a 5-star, but I think the series could become a 5-star once I finish like the whole trilogy, is Size. So I shared this in one of my latest book haul with you guys. I read the first book. I have the French version in French, it's called La Faucheuse. Neil Shusterman, but you guys would know this as Size. This is the first book in a trilogy. It's a dystopia and I loved it. So I've actually ordered the next 2 and I'm waiting for the next 2 to arrive so that I can finish the trilogy. This is actually categorized as young adult, but I don't think it reads like young adult at all. And my dad just finished it, actually, he just gave it back to me, and he loved it as well, even though, like I said, he's like in his 70s, so don't get fooled by the young adult category, as it definitely reads very grown up. In this particular world, AI is in control of everything, but thanks to AI, everything has been fixed. There is no more climate change problem, there is no more people like being hungry, there is no more wars. Through AI's intelligence, all the problems of the humans have been solved, because AI solved all the problems, control everything. There's no food shortage, no war, no nothing, no corrupt politician. AI is in charge and everyone is living their best life. The only problem is that now there is an overpopulation, obviously, as there's no illness or anything like that, so now there are too many people on Earth. To remedy that, to remedy the problem of overpopulation, a group of people are chosen to size them. I think in English, again, I read this in French, but I think in English it's called a size them. Those people are size, and they are in charge of unaliving people at random to keep the population in check. These group of individuals are trained to, you know, unalive people with very strict rules. Obviously, they cannot be using a certain qualification, they cannot be biased, have to meet certain quotas, they have to make sure that they are very strict. They are thought to be very wise and they are supposed to follow very strict rules. Their whole purpose is to replicate mortal deaths in a world where otherwise people are pretty much immortal. If people decide to throw themselves off a cliff, they will be picked up and put in the hospital and be brought back alive again. If people feel like they're getting too old, they can go to the hospital and get a whole new young body again. So the only kind of people who are managing the overpopulation, who are replicating mortal deaths, are the system. So in this story we follow 2 young teenagers, a boy and a girl, who are chosen to apprentice to a size, and through their apprenticeship we learn the secrets behind this very strange profession, which is all about unaliving people, and they will discover that potentially all scythes are not potentially as good as and wise as they're supposed to be. I'll leave it at that, but if you're looking for a very interesting dystopia, super interesting talks about obviously death and all of its form and what it means for humans to no longer be afraid for their life to end. So good, and I cannot wait to read the rest, and if you read it, let me know in the comments. I've ordered the next 2 and I'm so pumped. Completely different genre. In the month of May I discovered Kate Daniels, which is a urban fantasy series. I think there's 10 books, and this is written by Ilona Andrews, who's actually a couple. I think it's a wife and a husband who are co-writing this series, and I think they've got a couple of series as like urban fantasy, but Kate Daniels is, I think, their most well known. I read 5 books out of 10 and I had the best time. I will definitely continue reading this series. It was great. I'll leave the images here. If you liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you'll like this. In a world of werewolves, but also other weird creatures. We don't just have werewolves, we have vampires, we have witches, Kate is a kind of like slayer type badass heroine who is there to kick ass and to solve mysteries and murders, and she's awesome. She's very strong, badass female like main character. There's a little bit of a subplot of romance, which is more definitely on the subplot. The whole main thing is more about action paced. In this particular world, there's like magic waves that are continually appearing. And this is actually set in Atlanta, I think. So when the magic waves hit, suddenly everything technological no longer works. So the cars no longer work, the cell phone no longer works, anything like that. And suddenly magic is very high, so we have magical creatures coming out, people can have powers. But when the wave stops, we go back to a more tech-focused world where suddenly magic is waning and we're back to having cars that works, back to having like phone that works. So people are trying to navigate these weird times, whereas like sometimes there's magic, sometimes there's not. Obviously the effect of magic on the world has had huge repercussion, as it has destroyed a lot of the like skyscrapers and a lot of the building of this particular world. It's a little bit post-apocalyptic. There's zombies, there's necromancers, there's vampires, weird creatures, ton of action, badass female character, super easy to read urban fantasy. I was hooked. I read 5 of them in a row and I will continue reading it. Like I said, if you like Buffy, then you're gonna love this. Moving on to a completely different theme this time, let's talk about dragon riding fantasy. And this is a unique book because it's actually Jamaican inspired dragon rider fantasy. The first book in a duology. I haven't read the second book yet, but I have it on my e-reader, so I am excited to pick up the second book soon. So, and the book title is So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole. And this was such a great take on the stereotypical dragon riding fantasy, as it brought so many elements that are completely unique. First, the setup in this Jamaican kind of inspired world, which really focuses on anti-colonialism, culture assimilation. It focuses on the effect of war and of colonization to cultures. So there's this whole super important takes on these like story. There's also a wonderful queer relationship in this book. Overall, I thought it was a little bit slow at first, which is why it wasn't a 5-star for me, because I had to really like push myself through. I love the themes, I love the story, I'll tell you a little bit what it's about, but it was a little bit slow at first and I had to push myself through, but the ending was very satisfying and it ended on a cliffhanger, so now I want to read the second one. But this is the only reason why it didn't get 5-star from me. The story of Farron Vincent, a young girl who's considered a walking saint, the chosen one, the hero. Before the book started, there was a particular revolution from her people against the colonizers of her nation who have been like colonizing her island for way too long. There was a revolution and she was a huge part in her island liberating themselves from colonization, thanks to her being chosen by their gods to channel their powers. So now, once the revolution is over, war is over, her country has liberated themselves, freed themselves from the weight of the colonizers. She is considered a chosen one, the walking saint. To her divine magic that they were able to liberate themselves from their enemies, the Langley Empire, who are dragon riders. We follow Farron, who now, who still has powers, who still is the chosen one, but now that the war is over, she doesn't really know how to channel her life, how to find a direction, as she doesn't really have a goal anymore. She doesn't really have a purpose anymore. Her whole childhood was kind of trained towards being, a fighting hero, and now that the war is finished, she feels a little bit lost. At the same time, we follow the story of her sister, and their bond is so beautiful. This is definitely a story about sisterly love. The war is over. Farron is 17. She's all powered up. She has all those divine powers, but she doesn't really have anything to do. She doesn't have anywhere to go. She's kind of now the figure of the revolution. She's forced to attend a summit, like a peace summit, where her country will be inviting their enemies to a peace treaty. And she thinks she's gonna go there to perform tricks. What she doesn't expect though is her sister Elara, and they're very, very close. Elara has spent her whole life taking care of Farron, being her acolyte, being her support system. Elara ends up bonding with an enemy dragon during this peace treaty, which is obviously not planned, which is obviously very shocking, as Normally, dragons only bond with people coming from the Langley Empire, not from people coming from the island that they had subjugated. And the gods tell Farron that the only way to break the bond is to kill her sister. That's how the story starts. Then it really escalates. I really enjoyed it and I cannot wait to read the second book. Let's completely change genre again. This time let's talk about a fantasy trilogy that definitely has more horror elements. Specifically, I would call it eldritch horror element. It is the Justice of Kings, the Tyranny of Faith, and the Trials of Empire by Richard Swan. And the trilogy is finished and I actually ate those up in a week and a half. I just read book 1, read book 2, read book 3. The whole series as a whole was so good, really fantastic, and really different to any kind of other books I've read before. So this is actually inspired by the Roman Empire with elements of eldritch horror, necromancy, and I would say a very big emphasis on law and what it means to be just and what justice is all about. If this was categorized by a major arcana in the tarot, this would be the book about the justice card for sure. So this actually follows the story of Helena, who is the apprentice to a justice, and justice are people who are roaming the land, the judge and executioner. So they are traveling across these lands, they are listening to people's qualms, and they are there to like edict the laws and apply the punishments. And so Helena is the apprentice, she's the scribe, she's following this particular justice, who's a man who is very dedicated to his job as justice and who has a very strong moral compass. Each justices are imbued with special powers which help them being both judge and executioner. Some of them can speak to animals, some of them can raise the dead to like hear what they have to say, some of them can command people to say the truth. So there are definitely elements of magic which help those justices apply the law in this empire. And as Helena and her mentor are traveling across the land, they are starting to discover a plot that has the potential to uproot and disturb the whole empire. So it starts as a small CSI, let's solve this little mystery, let's solve this little murder, and this story takes on huge repercussion that will have them traveling across the empire, trying to save the empire and trying to make sure that this whole plot doesn't cause the crash of the empire. Again, very inspired by the Roman Empire history. So I would say the first book is definitely focused on a case study. You see how Justice von Holt, who is the mentor to Helena, is very much focused and dedicated to his job. You understand a little bit about the world, and as the books progress, book 2 and 3, you get more into the larger plot that they uncover that could cause the end of the empire. As the book progresses, the horror elements progress as well, which again, I won't spoil you, but I will say if you're familiar with eldritch horrors, you understand a little bit more. The more the books go, the creepier it gets. I will say first book, there's not much horror element. By book 3, you're like, oh god, this is a lot. And yet, it's so gripping. It's fantastically written. The main characters are flawed, which I think makes them so interested because this main, like, justice is so focused on making sure he follows the rules. You can understand that sometimes means that he's a very rigid character and you get frustrated with that, and Helena gets frustrated with that, and so that like gives a whole talk about, again, what does it mean to be fair versus what does it mean to follow the law, and is the law always applicable, and how far are you willing to go to apply the law, how far are you willing to go to be just versus being fair. It really is this interesting conversation about all of these themes, on top of a lot of action and interesting like necromancy elements, eldritch horror, really different to anything I've read before. But if that sounds interesting to you in any way, shape or form, I cannot recommend it enough. Very dense book, like not easy really read, I will say, but very rewarding, and I felt like I was taken on a whole journey and it felt very satisfying to read. A complete different genre again, but at the end of May / beginning of June, I was finally able to leave my bed a little bit, still struggling to walk right now, but I was able to make it to my local library, and I saw that they had started to get some mangas, which is not a genre I'm super familiar with. Like, I love watching animes, but I've never been a big manga reader, and so I decided to start my manga era by reading the Apothecary Diaries. So this is the French version. I read the first 3 or 4. I need to go back to my library and pick up the rest. So this is the French version. In French it's Les Carnets de l'Apothicaire, but you guys in English will know it as the Apothecary Diaries. It is by Itsuki Nanao, and actually this was adapted, I was told, on Netflix. There's an anime version of it, which I will definitely check out once I have read the books, because I am loving this, you guys. This is a very cool manga for me to get into, and I've been obsessed. And this is actually the story of Mama, who is on the front cover here. You can see her. She's a herbalist. She was trained by her father to learn plants, and she gets kidnapped and ends up being hired as one of the emperor's concubine poison testers to make sure that the concubine will not get poisoned when she eats her meal. Because of her knowledge of plants, she has this ability to recognize when things are poisonous, etc., etc. This doesn't have magical elements. It's very like historical fiction inspired, as we are in this world of like emperor and concubines, but it's also very focused on political intrigue, and I will say a little bit of murder mystery. The art style is super cute. Mao Mao is super cute. The characters are very endearing, and I love the political intrigue part of this, so I'm loving it. I don't know if you guys have read it. Let me know if you read the mangas. If you have watched the animes, let me know. I'm eating this up, and if you have other manga recommendation, let me know, as I'm really enjoying reading them right now, and I feel like I'm entering my manga era. So give your girl some recommendations. The last 2 books I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap it up. I feel like I've been yapping for ages. First up, we have What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This is the first book in a duology. The second book is out. I need to buy it so I can finish the duology, as I loved the first one, and I think honestly if the second one is as good as the first one, I could see giving the whole series 5 stars, but I'm waiting to read the whole story to make my opinion. But already the first book was super engaging. This is like historical fiction meets fantasy. It's very inspired by Egyptian culture, and it's kind of giving Indiana Jones and The Mummy vibes, which were 2 movies that gave me a spiritual awakening, like most millennials, I'm sure. So if you like Indiana Jones, if you like The Mummy, you're gonna love this book. It's giving all of those vibes. In this one, we follow the story of Inez, who is a young girl living in Buenos Aires. She's the daughter of 2 Egyptologists, people who are very passionate about Egypt. Her parents every year go 6 months a year living in Egypt to go and dig and discover treasure and explore the temples. They never take their daughter with, and so she lives with her aunt and cousin and always wishes she could join them on their adventure, as she feels very much left behind. One day she receives a letter announcing that both her parents have disappeared, that they are presumed dead, and so Ines decides to board a boat and decides to go to Cairo and find out exactly what happened to her parents herself. So this is set up in 19th century Egypt, which is why it's very much giving like Indiana Jones and the Mummy vibe. I love the main character, Inez. She's very like fiery and determined, and whilst, as you can imagine, women at the time don't have much freedom, she fights tooth and nail to find out what happens to her parents. I love the world building, like the whole setup of Egypt. I thought it was wonderful. I wanted to be there. Made me want even more to go and visit Egypt, as it's definitely something on my bucket list. There's a bit of a romance subplot, even though it's not the whole story. There's a bit of romance if you guys like that. And I guess the fantasy element of this, even though it's more historical fiction, the fantasy element of it comes in the fact that some objects hold magic. I loved it. Honestly, it was really easily read. It was super entertaining. I really liked the main character, and I can't wait to read book 2. So again, let me know if you guys read it. If you have any recommendations that are inspired by Egypt, as it's definitely an environment and setup I love. And the last book I want to talk about, which honestly, again, I could see becoming 5-star once I continue the series, because the first one was so good, and I have a feeling that the next book will get better and better, is Legend Born by Tracy Dion. This is a YA book, but again, doesn't read YA at all, in my opinion, and this is so cool. Again, very unique and different to what I've read before. It is Black Girl Magic meets Arthurian retelling set up in this university setting. And if that already doesn't sell you, I don't know what will. In this story, we follow Bree, a brilliant student who gets accepted in a high school program, but that is set up in university. Before she's supposed to start her school year, her mother sadly has a car accident and passes away. So a big theme of this first book definitely focuses around grief, trauma, the effect of grief on someone, and so I thought that was a beautiful conversation. So when Bree ends up in this university, as she starts the school year, she discovers that one, demons are real and that they are out there trying to attack humans. 2, that means that magic exists and she can see it. And 3, she discovers that there's a secret society that exists who holds the legacy of Arthurian knights and who are dedicated to fighting these demons and saving humanity. And so she decides to enter this society and participate in trials to secure her place as one of those people that could fight the demons. Obviously, there's gonna be a lot more going on. The story takes on whole new elements, and I would say the themes of this are, like I was saying, grief, trauma across generation. Bree is a wonderful main character. It talks a lot about race as well, as this is set in the south of the United States. The whole Arthurian myth retelling but twisted was so cool. I've never seen Arthurian myth taken and spin this way, and overall it was great. There's a romance subplot as well. Just everything was so cool. I really love this. I cannot wait. I think there's 4 books planned and the first 3 are out, and I think the third one came out this year, so you can at least read the first 3. I need to buy the next 2 and finish what is out, because this was so good and I cannot wait to catch up. I think it's gonna be a fantastic series. Like I said, if it continues in this line, I could see this becoming a 5-star series for me, so I'm excited to continue the story and see where it goes. But that's all the books I wanted to talk about, you guys. That was so much, and still, that's not even I think a third of what I read in the last 2 months. I wanted to talk about the best of the best. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Now it's your turn. Let me know if you've read any of the books I've talked about, if you like them, if you didn't like them. Give me a recommendation if you want, based on what I shared, as now you kind of know what I like. I love to chat with you guys about books, and if you liked hearing about them, let me know. I'm very happy to continue talking more about books on this channel. But now, without further ado, let's talk about decks. Get into decks. I've got some tarot, I've got some oracle. I think it's only indie this time. The first one that has been a huge favorite at this recent few weeks is absolutely the Magical Arcana. This is by Yena from Soul Shadow Tarot, who very kindly sent me a copy. If you're watching, Yena, I'm sending you so much love. I love this so much. I don't know if this is still available on Salon des Arcanes. There were some copies, but I'm not sure. So I won't spend too long sharing it, as I don't know if it's still in print or not. But here are the backs, and this is a anime inspired deck that very much focuses around beloved animes from our childhood. So you're gonna see some Sailor Moon inspiration, etc. This was created with the help of AI, and this is my childhood deck dreams come true. Like I said, I love anime. I'm getting into my manga era right now, and this is just joyful. It's cute, it's colorful, it's giving nostalgia. This is my favorite card. I adore it. I've been using this for myself consistently in the recent weeks. You will have seen it in my latest haul. If you've not watched my latest haul, I'll make sure to leave it in the card somewhere. I shared some recent books and some decks. This is fantastic. I absolutely adore it, and this is my main deck I've been using in pretty much since I received this. I would say end of May and all of June. I adore this so much. I've not really paired this with any oracle deck, but it's perfect on its own. It's smaller size, which for me right now is great, as my hands are still very painful, so perfect for me to have a smaller kind of deck, and I just really adore it. So I had to mention it, and this is one I want to use for you guys soon on a pick up high reading. I know there was a few of you who managed to grab it, who managed to get their hands on it through Nicolas from Salon des Arcanes shop, and I'm excited for you guys because this is so good. Very fast becoming one of my favorite decks of the year. I adore it so much. The next deck that I've been loving very much using for myself, I don't think you guys will be surprised, it is the Cosmic Seeker Tarot. Is my light too bright? Maybe I should put it down a little bit. Cosmic Seeker Tarot. This one I got from Salon des Arcanes shop from Nicolas. Here are the backs, and the sides are in this gorgeous like matte red. It is a fantasy inspired tarot deck. I think I've talked about it a lot recently, so I won't spend too long on it, but I absolutely adore it. It's very much a deck that feels like all of the books I've talked to you earlier, right? It could be like the Justice of Kings, it could be like the Tainted Cup, it could be like Empire of the Vampire. Like a lot of the books I've enjoyed reading lately feel like they could be set up in this world and feel like the deck would belong there. It has magical creatures. We have a beautiful diversity of skin tones, which is not something we see a lot in terms of fantasy inspired decks, and yet that's something I always look out for, so I'm really appreciative of that. We have different lovers cards for like a lesbian couple, a gay couple, and a straight couple, and they're all gorgeous, so I leave all of mine in. This is a little bit scary. It's giving the Lord of the Rings, right? Which is like a little bit scary. I'm not a huge spider fan, but great for this particular card. As you can see, we have the title of the card, and at the bottom sometimes we have some of the renamings. I adore this one very much. It takes me into this magical world, and it's one of my main deck. When I've not been using the magical arcana, I've been using this one because it's perfect to help me escape. And like I said, right now my day-to-day life is very harsh, very focused around like getting physically better. So I like to escape. I like to pretend I can take a moment to not be in my body that's in a lot of pain. And decks like this are perfect for that. This is so beautiful. My favorite queen, I think, of the deck. She's gorgeous. On its way to be one of my favorites of the year. I can't put it down. I've used it on my other channels, the Waves of Your Soul readings before. I will continue using it for others as well as myself. I love it very much, and yeah, you can get this on Etsy. I know a lot of you guys have picked it up since I showed it first, and you enjoy it as well, which makes me happy. So that is the Cosmic Seeker Tarot. Super beautiful, reads like a dream, beautiful fantasy inspiration. We love it. Next up, let's talk about a combo of decks that was sent to me actually by the creator, by Jele from Inner Reflect, and I've been loving these two. This is the Inner Reflect Oracle, and this is the Dreamy Horizons Tarot, both created by Jele from Inner Reflect. You can find him on Instagram, and he has a website. Both of these decks were created with the help of AI, and I have been really enjoying them, especially the Oracle deck, which if you guys watch my readings channel, you will have seen me using a lot. It has 50 cards, and I just love the choices. For an AI deck, I was super pleasantly surprised because, again, you know, AI decks sometimes they can feel like cash grabs, they can feel like not much effort was put in. This, with both of these decks, as with Yena's decks, you can tell a lot of effort was poured into it, a lot of editing, like paying attention to curate and to edit and to come up with the concept. So I really appreciate when that's the case. There's no people with 6 fingers and things like that, you know, and all the choices of keywords and of depictions are really smart. This is a very balanced Oracle deck. We have shadow, we have light, we have a lot of really cool concepts, and to do predictive readings, specifically to look at the energies of the week ahead, the months ahead, things like that, it is perfect and potentially, again, on its way to be one of my favorite decks of the year. I use this non-stop. I use it for myself. I use it for other people. I use it on my readings channel. I love this so much. It gives a little bit like fantasy world, but the keywords are so grounded that it's so easy to use for like a day-to-day readings. You can use this for love reading, career readings. There's a really good variety of concepts. Again, very well balanced deck, very well thought out, full of intention, beautiful production quality. Actually, the cards are really easy to shuffle. I really like the cardstock. For this rose matte finish. It actually shuffles really well, and I think it's beautiful. Jelly really has done a fantastic job. I know a lot of you have picked this up as well. You send me some messages after seeing it, so that makes me happy, as I think a lot of you would enjoy this. Really cool concepts, well balanced oracle deck, and one that's kind of become a workhorse for me, honestly. I love this like Studio Ghibli inspired vibe. That's very much me, so I really like this one. Matching tarot is called the Dreamy Horizons Tarot. With this one we get a lot of choices actually, so there's more than 78 cards. We get 4 keywords card, 1 bonus major, and 7 extra cards to change to your liking. I love when people do that. You know me, I'm a greedy bitch. The more cards the better. Here are the backs. They match the backs of the oracle, which is great. We don't get a PDF or a guidebook, but we get those cards with keywords, which for me is enough. And like I said, we get extra cards with this one, so we get a few lovers. There's like a straight couple, a gay couple, a lesbian couple, and all of them are elderly, which I love. Okay, this is my favorite thing about this extra cards. I love the fact that all the lovers are elderly. This is the way to my soul. There's something so wholesome about that. We get an extra strength, an extra devil, so an extra justice, so you can really like make up the deck that you want. And again, this is very Studio Ghibli inspired, set up in this kind of whimsical fantasy world. I think Julia has done a fantastic job at curating the images, at finding images and like curating concepts that match the archetype of tarot. I love the court cards especially because for the knights we have feet, like different feet doing different things that relate to the knight. For the pages, I think we have hands, which I thought was a really cool concept. I love that. And yeah, this has been a joy to read with. I've read with this on my channel. I think I use this for the what people think of you or the impression you give to people. I'll make sure to leave it in the cards. I can't remember the name of it now, but it read so good for that. And it's one I can see myself continue to use for myself and for others because it's just so easy. It's very fluid, RWS inspired, but take you again in this like magical fantasy world, whimsical world, which if you guys know is very much my vibe. And I think this is great. And obviously the two of them together, the tarot and the oracle together, are fantastic. I love that a lot of the people are elderly, like I said, and this is probably my favorite card. It's so cool. So that is the Dreamy Horizons Tarot by Inner Reflect. I'll make sure to leave in the description box where you can get this. And again, thank you so much to Jelly for sending this my way, as I've been absolutely adoring it, and it's been a joy to read with. Let's talk about a tarot deck I haven't shared on my channel before, so this will be included in a haul. I need to film it next time I get a chance. I've got a few decks to introduce to you guys. A lot of them I haven't had the chance to check out yet, as again, my health hasn't been the best, but this one I've been starting to read with in the last few days and I'm really enjoying it, so I wanted to give a sneak peek. This is the Forgotten Legends Tarot. This is by Modern Magic Store, and the person who holds the store, I think, is called Lisa or Lydia. I can't remember, but she's super cool, which she has some fantastic decks. They're the same people who did the Bird King Tarot. This is, again, a fantasy inspired tarot deck. Can you tell there was a theme? I was reading a lot of fantasy, as you've seen if you watched my books part, and so I was in a fantasy mood, which I'm in most of the time, but especially so recently. And I actually discovered this deck thanks to my lovely friend Isabel from Starlight Witch on Tarot, and she's also started her YouTube channel, so I'm gonna make sure to leave her YouTube channel below. I'm super excited for her to start her TarotTube journey, and one of her first videos was actually a presentation of this deck, which I had never seen before. And you're gonna see the Nine of Cups has a goblin in it, and I was like, sold, add to cart. This is it. I saw one card, there was a goblin on it, it was the Nine of Cups. I was like, what do you expect me to do? I cannot help myself. Okay, this is out of my hands. So of course I ordered it. Now apparently this is going out of print, so if you like it, maybe get it sooner than later. I don't know if it's out of print now at the time of me filming, but it's going and will not be reprinted, so maybe if you like it I would get it sooner rather than later. The cardstock is matte, and again this is giving fantasy world, fantasy books, a little bit medieval Arthurian inspired. We have knights and we have witches and we have magical beings and we have like high priestesses and we have a goblin, like I said in the Nine of Cups, was the one card that made me want this. I think the art style is stunning, and as the name suggests, the Forgotten Legend, this is very inspired by lore, I think specifically from Eastern Europe, but the guidebook is in Russian, so I haven't translated it yet. I will at some point, as I'm sure there's tons of cool legends and stories in this that I'm not familiar with, like folk tale, fairy tale. That being said, even to read as is, it has not stopped me from getting fantastic reading, because I can take it as face value and just like read intuitively and take this as like fantasy inspiration rather than like actually following a specific legend or lore inspiration, if that makes sense. So I'm perfectly fine and have had a great time reading with this as is, but obviously I'm sure it's going to be super interesting to dive into the guidebook and translate it. I've just not had that much time since I've received this. I think this is Beauty and the Beast, right? We have the Beast with Rose. So some of them I definitely recognize, some of them I don't, but it's very stunning. I love the colors, a little bit more, I would say, autumn colors, right? They're giving, the vibe is giving me autumn, and where I live right now in Reunion, we are in autumn starting winter, I mean tropical winter, so you know, it's still pretty hot. But let me live my little autumn fantasy, and of course, I had to share it with you guys. Here is the one card that made me buy the deck. This happy female goblin, come on. This is me. This is my lore. I feel seen. Honestly, this is me. So I love that. And of course, I had to pick it up when I saw this card. So that is the Forgotten Legends Tarot. Super cool. I'm gonna continue using it. Like I said, I've not had it that long, but I'm excited to get to know it more. The shop is Modern Magic. I'll make sure to leave it in the description box. Hopefully there's still some copies out. And yeah, you can expect to see it in my readings channel. I'm excited to read with it for you guys as well. Let's talk about a tarot deck that is very unique in my collection and that has been blowing me away. This is the Architectural Objects Tarot, and you guys will have seen this if you watched my MPC Make Playing Cards Print on Demand deck collection, which thank you so much to those of you who watched, as this was a very requested video, so I'm glad a lot of you enjoyed it. Here are the backs. It's by the same creator who did a Naturescape, but instead of this being based on nature, this time it's based on, as the name suggests, architectural object, and I am absolutely obsessed. I've used this deck non-stop pretty much all month of May, and I'm continuing to use it in June, and it is fantastic. It's very, very smart in terms of the choices of the pictures, of the photography for each of the card. It's very unique in my collection. I don't have any other deck that looks like this or that reads like this, and it really helps push me outside my comfort zone as a reader, which I really appreciate, as sometimes you can get a little bit in a rut, right? A deck like this will absolutely push you outside your comfort zone and forces you to flex your intuitive muscle, to think of tarot, of your readings in a new way, and I absolutely love that. I think it's beautiful. The pictures chosen are stunning, and like I was saying, it's very, very smart. Like, there's literally not one card that I don't see the tarot archetype or card in. You know, it's one of those decks that I'm like, man, I wish I created this, right? I wish I had thought of this. This is so smart, so clever. So I really enjoy it. I've used it mostly for myself. I don't think I've used it on my readings channel yet. I really should. This is great for day-to-day readings, actually, and the Naturescapes feel more spiritual to me, whereas this one feels more like day-to-day. Maybe because this one is more focused on like human-made things versus the Naturescapes, which is more focused on nature. But you could use this for anything, honestly, and it's very unique, right? As you can see, it focuses on pictures of statues and doors and architectural like elements, which really gives this a very unique voice. There's not that many people who know about this deck and who uses this deck, but every single person who I know has this, loves it. It's kind of one of those like decks that I think has a cult following, where if you get this, you are gonna love it, honestly. And this is my favorite card, the Hobbit Hole for the Page of Wands. Absolutely genius in my opinion. We have the home of Bilbo in the Lord of the Rings, The whole story of Bilbo is that he goes on an adventure, and that is absolutely perfect for the Page of Wands, right? The idea of going on an adventure, stepping outside your door, seeing what's out there. It's so clever. I love this so much. And again, if you want to see the other decks from these creators, I share them on my Make Playing Cards collection video, which again I leave in the cards if you haven't checked that out yet. Last deck I want to talk about is the Canule Oracle. This is another deck I got on Make Playing Cards. Again, if you watch my print on demand collection video, you will have seen it. Here are the backs, absolutely stunning. And this is my latest favorite for divination, fortune telling, things like that. So I can't remember how many cards there are in this one, but I would say 50 on top of my head. And as you're gonna see, this is very inspired by the RWS. This is inspired by specifically Pamela Coleman Smith's art style. And I would say it's kind of like a Lenormand, but without any of the Lenormand cards. But it is Lenormand inspired to me because it's like an object and the name of the object, and then you have a PDF that gives you meaning, or for myself, I read it intuitively, but I read it very like Lenormand style. So whilst it's not a Lenormand, it gives me that kind of vibes of like divinatory oracle deck, really great for fortune telling and for divination and predictive readings. As you can see, like the art style is so fantastic for me because pairs wonderful with the RWS, as it's very similar to Pamela Coleman Smith's art style. So I love to pair this with any RWS I own, specifically with the Centennial. It's so good, but I've paired it with the Albano Weight, and even with that, even though the colors are a lot more muted on this one, it's still great because the art style is so similar. All the cards depict a different like object or element of this world. Interesting, and that obviously you can read again intuitively. If you want, you can download a PDF guidebook, which is really great, but for myself I found this to be so fluid, such an easy reader. I've actually used this in my July 2025 reading that's coming on my readings channel, The Waves of Your Soul readings. So if you want to see how this reads, make sure to check that out. For my monthly reading of July, I used it and it was wonderful. It reads like a dream. I've used it for myself for week ahead readings and it's really good. So this specifically for like fortune telling, predictive reading, thinking about what's the energies of the week, what's the energy of next month. If your friend has a question about what they're going through, whatever, this is great. Again, you have to not mind the fact that there's no keyword on the card because the keyword describe what is on the card. Personally, I don't mind that, as I find it very intuitive, but I know some people don't like that. For me, it really doesn't bother me, and I just love the art style, and I was looking for an oracle deck that could pair with RWS, and this is just perfect. Plus, there's lots of cards, which I love. It's on linen cardstock. You can get a Lenormand, I think, by this creator on MPC, and I think you can get this deck smaller, like this is tarot size, but I think you can get it smaller size as well. Lots of choices, it's so good. So this is definitely one I've been enjoying lately, and one I wanted to share with you guys. Okay, my friends, this is it. I'm gonna stop here. I'm starting to flare up, and I think I've talked for way over an hour, so I've got a lot of editing to do. Otherwise this video is gonna be so long. But I was so excited to talk to you about my recent books and recent decks favorite. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sending you so many hugs. Take good care of yourself. I hope you're being kind to yourself in this crazy time we're going through. Make sure to take good care of yourself. I am sending you so much good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!